Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today I've got my first impressions of the Unlimited X-Men. I've got to say my initial impression was that, boy, Scopely knows how to make releases right when they're in hot water, when the players are up in arms against them. They did it last year with Silver Surfer, and here we are again with a super popular character released or announced right afterwards. It's being Gambit. Obviously this is a team whose value to players is going to depend a lot on the value of the new Crucible game mode and what rewards we're going to get. I mean, they promise here later in the blog that we're going to get oodles of teal gear from the Crucible, but it doesn't come until later on in this blog, so I'm not even going to go through it. But here you go. Tons of teal gear will be up for grabs each season. You know what that means, who knows? Scopely's definition of tons may be different than yours or mine. What I will say is this team seems like it will be good enough, even outside the game mode, to have value elsewhere. But it's not going to be truly dominant outside of the Crucible game mode, as far as I could tell. Let's look at it at Gambit's kit. He's a global blaster. It is nice to be finally getting some non-mystic characters. Now it looks like we're going to get a run of mutants, which is not surprising, given that Apocalypse is, going to be the big bad this year, and we're dealing with the Horsemen and all that. I frankly would start farming mutant gear if you have caught up in Mystic. If you've gotten through the Mystic crunch, I'd start farming up mutant, because I wouldn't be surprised if this is the start of a mutant crunch. In any event, you can start here at the passive. So on spawn, he's going to gain a charge. In Crucible, he's going to gain an additional charge on spawn. That's going to have an important interaction with his special. What I will say is there's no way in his kit to get additional charges. So they said on the video that there's going to be 2 more members of this team that are going to come out next patch. I expect one of them to be Rogue, based on the sort of joke that Cerebro made at the end of the video about sugar, which is sort of the word that Rogue uses to refer to Gambit at least in the animated series. I assume in the comic books as well. So maybe she'll be giving charges to him. I don't know. And that to me, the most bonkers thing about this kit is actually in the passive. So at the end of any enemy turn, attack the most injured enemy, ignoring taunt for 180% piercing and apply heal block. Super, super powerful. Out of turn attacks are always a very, very powerful part of a character's kit, right? Black Bolt, when he came out, super powerful with the burp. Every time a character got into the red, they'd get burped by Black Bolt. Kestrel, when she came out, super powerful with those pings that were whenever you attacked a character with defense down. And here, at the end of any enemy turn he's attacking, these out-of-turn attacks are so powerful in a turn-based game because they're a way of skipping to the front of the line. Usually, you have to wait for your turn, and it's all about getting speed bar and getting turns. Here, you don't, even when it's not your turn, you're attacking. And this is a smarter attack, always attacking the most injured enemy. Just very powerful, and keeping heal block on that character. Super powerful ability. This is even more bonkers. Even more bonkers, because he's going to be taking so many turns in Crucible, but it's a Crucible only ability. At the end of any enemy turn in Crucible, fill speed bar by 20% for this character. These 2 abilities are insane, because what's going to happen is here, like let's say they're facing Darkhold and you've used Time Warp and they're taking tons of turns, he's going to be attacking anyway. So even as the enemy thinks it's getting advantage by taking a lot of turns, you're counteracting it a little bit, because Gambit's taking turns essentially. And then, all the enemy's turns are giving him speed bar, which is essentially speeding him up as well, at least in Crucible. And then there's this element here where when he drops below 50% health, he's, getting all this stuff. He's getting stealth, immunity, clearing defense down, getting 50% drain, which means that his 50% of his damage is going to come back as healing. And then, because, and then he's also, as a side note, going to be giving evade on crit to the entire team, which, by the way, you can do outside of Crucible. That's one of the things I think that makes this character nuts, because you're going to make him a Raider. There's no question the whole kit screams Raider. So he's going to be critting all the time. giving evades out all the time. And then when the character has evade, he's giving additional crit chance and damage to the whole team. So I suspect this is going to be a team that is going to be a heavily Raider team, in terms of ISO. And it's going to be a team that benefits a lot from, crit chance, crit damage. And then, he's giving out max health to the whole team. Right now, you're going to use him with a couple X-Men allies that are not unlimited X-Men. But they said the other two are coming next patch, so presumably Rogue and one other one or whatever will ultimately finish off this team. Let's go to the basic here. So the basic really is a kind of a modified version of that out-of-turn attack. He's going to attack the primary target for 300% damage, but then he'll bonus attack the most injured enemy, ignoring taunt for 250% piercing. I think there will be times where this is a better choice over the special, which is essentially a second basic of sorts. And this is a character I think that'll do way better in human hands than the AI's hands, because sometimes if a character's got a sliver of health and they're under stealth or something, you'll just want to use the basic. But usually you're going to want to get this ability block. And then in Crucible, this is a nutso ability. Speed up for 2 turns to the whole team is huge. So even when you don't have a charge, you'll often want to use speed up. But of course, the AI is not going to know how to do that well. All right, the ultimate also very bonkers. Not only attacking all enemies for 520% damage, but and disrupted for 2 turns to all enemies. Right? Remember when that was a big deal when Magneto did that? Well, here in Crucible, flipping 2 positive effects to negative effects on all enemies. So super, super powerful in Crucible. I mean, this character is, in Crucible, maybe the best character in the game or close to it. But outside of Crucible will be very good. That's essentially what my initial impressions are of this character. Phantom X character I'm not familiar with outside of this game. But he's basically he looks to me like a protector, except they gave him this blaster tag. These tags often don't mean anything. So we'll start with the passive. On spawn, he's applying evade to the whole team. On turn, he heals. On death, he does a lot of amazing stuff for the team, which, he's the first character on your team you want to die. As a result, I'd say. And then, when he has defense up, which is going to be often, he's going to gain 100% chance to counterattack, right? So, that's, very powerful, a mechanic we've seen with a lot of tanky protector characters. Basically, you can't put bleed on him. He gets 10% dodge chance from the team, so either 40 or 50% dodge chance. It's 10% per unlimited X-Men ally, so either 40 or 50%, depending on how that's coded, and then 25% armor. So when you look at his kit, he's another character who really benefits from crits. If he crits, he's going to be applying defense down and stacking it, for multiple turns of defense down, up to three turns of defense down just on his basic one time. So very powerful there. And of course, it's all piercing damage, which ignores armor. The special usable on turn 1, same with the ultimate. This is another one where I think will be better in human hands. Gains taunt for 2 turns, hence I said, he's kind of a protector target. And then he attacks a primary target and applies taunt and offense down for 2 turns. And so, to me, and if he's stuck behind a taunt, then it just targets the enemy with the highest damage instead. Seems to me like a great way of getting your team to target a single and fire down a single enemy, combined with the Gambit, a most injured enemy language. I mean, I could see this team just doing very well, at funneling down a particular enemy. And maybe that'll work on defense better than some other teams. It's sort of how they have war defense teams where they'll have things hard coded to focus on particular enemies. And then, by the way, I said, applies defense up for 2 turns to the whole team. This is almost like a necessity now in this game at this level of the meta. It seems like everyone has defense up all the time. And as I said, he'll be getting counterattack whenever he has defense up. All right, his ultimate, clearing all deflect and evade from the primary target. Attack the primary target for 50% piercing plus bonus attack 5 times for 50% piercing. So that's, that's 300% piercing. In Crucible, bonus attack 4 additional times for 50% piercing. So That's another 200%. This would be like 500% piercing, which is an insane attack. And then 10% additional damage per positive effect on the primary target. Attack's unavoidable and can't be blocked. I mean, I will say this would do very, very well in, let's say, War against the Heroes for Hire. Certainly in Crucible, it's going to just devastate teams like Heroes for Hire. Although Heroes for Hire, I think, only gets all those deflects in the War defense game mode. But I will say that, I think they're trying to make this team so good that it could potentially challenge a team like Darkhold. I don't know whether it will. We'll have to see the full team. We'll have to see the stats and all that. But they're definitely, this is definitely going to hit really hard in Cosmic Crucible, particularly against teams and characters that are buffed. Dazzler, I think anticipated character as well, popular character, X-Men character. She's a controller, supposedly. They always have so many controllers at this game. Maybe just to create a crunch, I don't know. But if you look here, so on spawn, she barriers the entire team for 30% of their max health. She does have, to me, I view her almost like a support in this team. She does cleansing, she does barrier, and so on. I think if they didn't want to create a crunch, I think that would be a more reasonable category for her. When an unlimited X-Men ally gains a negative effect, fill this character's speed bar by 10%. To me, this is the most nutso part of her kit. You're going to have enemies that spit out tons of negative effects, and she's just going to take a ton of turns. And this is the sort of thing that you may not be focused on when you're looking at it. You'll be focused on the attacks and moves and so forth, but this is the sort of thing that I think is going to actually make her nuts. On blind, she gains deflect and clears blind from the entire team, so enemies that really rely on blind are going to do nothing against her. For example, you'll have young Avengers, who have blind, obviously, older teams like Brotherhood. She gives a lot of focus to the team. Let's look at her kit here. So the basic flips defense up. As I said, many enemies are going to have defense up. It's kind of a necessity nowadays in the meta. 50% less damage incoming. That's a pretty significant thing. Then it becomes defense down. A lot of flips on this team, which is, I think, a powerful mechanic, switching buffs to debuffs, particularly right now in the meta where so many teams are high buff reliant. And then attacking the primary target for 300% damage and applying offense down. In Crucible, blinding on her basic, which is very powerful, sort of like similarities to the Jubilee character. Then she has her special and ultimate available turn 1. So her special attacks the primary target for 360% damage, applies blind, and reduces speed bar by 25%. Once again, very similar to Jubilee, but way better because she's reapplying her barrier for 30%. So to me, this is a judgment where has the initial barrier expired, or is most of the team fully barriered up? If so, that's a waste because there is a maximum, I think, of 30% barrier that a character can have in this game. But if they're low on barrier, this will kind of refresh the barrier. In Crucible, she applies 2 regen to the whole team, and this is an unavoidable attack. And this here can be very powerful, by the way, even if you don't need the barrier, just to kind of take a particular enemy out of the fight. The ultimate, this is a huge move for her, flipping 2 negative effects to positive effects on the entire team. So this is where I called it a cleanse. It's actually better than a cleanse, flipping negative to positive. In Crucible, flip all negative to positive on the whole team. So this is very, very powerful. She will be a lot better in Crucible, but still, this is reasonable outside of it. Applying ability block to the primary target. Remember when that was such a big deal? Now it's just thrown in there. Attack all enemies for 450% damage and apply slow. Also very powerful. It means that 50% less speed bar increase. And then very high focus and can't be counterattacked. She's a very good character. She's going to add a lot to this team. Very necessary member of the team. My guess is she's going to be the only cleanse, and she's a key support for the team. But not as, insane as Gambit, which is understandable. So, what does this mean for this team? What should you do with this team? My view in general has been, and my new stance has been, in the age of Scourges and all of that, just collect the shards and save your gear. I know a lot of you are just going to max out this team. to me, whether you want to do that depends on a couple things. Is this the new Horseman's team? In other words, is Rogue the new Horseman and will go on this team? Maybe. Then, maybe you want it. I guess that depends on how much you care about Crucible. I mean, we don't know. They say tons of teal gear. I would wait to see what you're getting out of that personally before I invested. If I had, limited resources. Obviously on stream, I'm going to be, bringing up characters just to show them off to you. But that's my general advice there. Otherwise I would be, waiting to see which of these new characters is going to be most useful for the next Scourge. Remember, so technically there's only 4 characters coming out this patch, right? 4 or 5 characters, whatever it is. But there's all these additional characters that are effectively coming out because there's only 2 A-Force members. There's actually 5 new characters coming this patch. I'm sorry, not 4, 5. These 3 characters plus the 2 A-Force characters. But in addition to that, we have reworks to 2 A-Force characters. So that means, older characters, Captain Marvel and Jessica Jones. So that is essentially 7. Then the devs said they're going to rework a whole other old team for Cosmic Crucible. So that's effectively 12 characters that you're going to need to potentially invest in this patch. That's what Scopely's doing now, is presenting us with lots and lots of characters and teams to invest in. So I would, in my view, would be cautious about using resources. Now, if there is a character that you can use now that could help you now, great. I mean, for example, this team may be useful in war for players who care about it. I think A-Force obviously going to probably be more useful given that they're a war-focused team. And some people have been asking me, is Gambit going to replace Kitty Pryde on the Axemen team in raids, because their thought process being that he's going to give max health to the whole team, including the Astonishing X-Men, plus he'll be surviving himself because he's going to get evade, and he'll stealth the first time he gets low damage and all of that. I think the issue with that, and what I would just say is, be cautious, because Kitty Pryde does provide some important things in her passive. In other words, her actual attacks maybe aren't that important but to the team, but these bonuses and raids where she's giving defense up on turn to the 2 most injured allies, and then on enemy turn applying evade to the most injured X-Men ally, I think that's very powerful. It makes the rest of your team survivable in a way that you may not be paying attention to in a fight. So I think that remains to be seen. And so while I'm sure some of you are going to rush in to invest in Gambit, if you are low on resources, I do think you may want to just hold off, save your resources, and get your shards. I think that's the most prudent thing to do, but I could understand a lot of folks are excited about the character and may not do that. All right, guys. If you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. If you got comments, questions, cheers, jeers, happy, sad, angry, mad, you can put it below, or you can go to my Discord. That's linked below. You can also go to my Twitch stream. That is linked below too.